Days was stunned by the secret her son had just told her, something her husband had been trying to hide for a long time. Determined to expose him, she decided to come home early to confront him. However, what Days found when she opened the door left her completely astonished, revealing a truth even more surprising than she could have imagined. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Days looked out the office window, her eyes wandering over the urban horizon, while her mind navigated through a sea of worries. 15 years of marriage to Samuel seemed to have transformed into a monotonous routine, devoid of the spark that once ignited their hearts. The clock on the wall marked the relentless rhythm of time, reminding her that every passing second was yet another moment where she felt the chasm growing between her and the man who had promised to love her forever. With a heavy sigh, Days turned her attention to the photo on her desk, a frozen image of happier times. She, Samuel, and little Logan, all smiles and bright eyes during a picnic in the park. Logan, now 10 years old, was the light of their lives, but even the love for their son couldn't fill the void that had settled in the couple's relationship. Days carried with her an invisible burden, a legacy of abandonment that had shaped her worldview since childhood. The memories of that fateful day still haunted her dreams. She and her sister Kathy, still children, being separated and sent to different homes after the inexplicable abandonment by their parents. The trauma of that abandonment and separation had left deep scars on her soul, nurturing an insecurity that now threatened to erode the foundations of her marriage. While organising some papers, Days couldn't help but let her mind wander to Samuel. He was a good man, hard-working and devoted to the family, but lately he seemed distant, lost in his own thoughts. Every prolonged silence, every distracted glance fueled Daisy's deepest fears. Could it be possible that he was also thinking of abandoning her? At home, Samuel faced his own silent battle. Sitting at the kitchen table, he leafed distractedly through a magazine, his mind a whirlwind of unspoken thoughts. He loved Days. Of that he was certain, but he felt inadequate in the face of the subtle changes in her behaviour. The arguments were becoming more frequent, and he found himself lost, unable to decipher what was going on in his wife's heart. Logan entered the kitchen, his curious eyes observing his father. "Dad, are you sad?" he asked innocently. Samuel forced a smile, messing up his son's hair. "No, champ, just thinking a bit." The boy nodded, not entirely convinced, but accepting his father's answer. At night, when Days got home from work, the air in the house was filled with unresolved tension. Dinner proceeded in an uncomfortable silence, interrupted only by Logan's occasional comments about his day at school. After putting their son to bed, the couple retreated to opposite corners of the house, the distance between them seeming insurmountable. It was on a Wednesday that the situation reached a boiling point. Samuel, after a stressful day at work, decided to accept the invitation from some friends to watch a soccer game. In the midst of the excitement and thrill of the moment, he completely forgot to inform Days about his plans. When he finally got home late at night, he found Days waiting for him in the living room, her arms crossed and her face full of hurt and anger. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Samuel, caught off guard, stammered an explanation. I went to see the game with the guys. I thought I had told you." Daisy's words came like an avalanche. Years of insecurity and fear of abandonment exploded in a torrent of accusations and tears. "You never tell me anything. It's as if I no longer exist for you, Samuel. I'm tired of feeling invisible, of imagining that at any moment you're going to realise that you don't love me anymore and you're going to leave me, just like—" She stopped abruptly, the words caught in her throat. Samuel, astonished, tried to approach, but Days stepped back. "Just like what, Days?" he asked softly, beginning to understand the depth of his wife's pain. "Just like my parents left me," she whispered, tears now streaming freely down her face. "I don't want to go through that again, Samuel." "I can't." Samuel felt his heart tighten. How had he not realized how much Days still suffered from the wounds of the past? He took a step towards her, wishing to comfort her, but not knowing how. Days, I'm sorry. I didn't know you felt that way. I never wanted to make you feel invisible or unloved. The night ended with both of them emotionally exhausted, but without a clear resolution. Samuel lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind filled with thoughts on how he could reassure Days of his love. Days, on the other hand, cried silently in the bathroom, fearing that her insecurities had finally put an end to their marriage. The next morning, the air was still heavy with the emotions of the previous night. Days was getting ready to take Logan to school, trying to maintain an appearance of normalcy for her son. While driving, Logan broke the silence with a revelation that made Dais's heart freeze. "Mom," he said hesitantly, "I heard Dad talking on the phone hiding in the backyard this morning. I don't know who he was talking to, but he arranged to meet her here at home this afternoon. He even said she could come without worry, that you would only arrive at 6 in the evening." Days felt as if the world had stopped. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure in front of her son. "Thank you for telling me, dear," she managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. "Don't worry, okay? It must be some work commitment." After dropping Logan off at school, Days drove to work on autopilot, her mind a whirlwind of dark thoughts. Could it really be possible that Samuel was... No, she couldn't even think of the word, but the evidence seemed to point to the worst. The day at the office passed in a blur. Days could barely focus on her tasks, her gaze constantly returning to the clock. At 2 in the afternoon, she couldn't take it anymore. Approaching her supervisor, she asked to leave early, saying she needed to resolve an urgent matter. With a heavy heart, Days drove back home. She parked the car a few meters away, watching the street closely. Time seemed to drag on as she waited, each minute a torture of anticipation and fear. Then she saw it. An unknown black car stopped in front of her house. Days held her breath as she saw a woman get out of the vehicle. Although she couldn't see her face clearly from a distance, the sight of Samuel coming out to greet her and inviting her inside felt like a stab in her heart. For a few moments, Days was paralyzed, unable to believe what her eyes were seeing. Then a wave of determination engulfed her. She would not be a victim again. She would not allow abandonment to define her life once more. With firm steps, she walked towards the house, the keys jingling in her trembling hand. Taking a deep breath, she flung the door open, prepared to confront the scene that would surely shatter her heart. What Days saw upon entering, however, left her speechless. Sitting on the living room sofa was a woman who seemed to be her reflection in the mirror. The same eyes, the same hesitant smile. It was Kathy, her sister from whom she had been separated for so long. Samuel had finally found Dais's sister online and arranged this reunion. "Days!" exclaimed Kathy, standing up with teary eyes. "We can finally embrace each other again." The two sisters met in the middle of the room, merging into a hug that seemed to want to make up for all the lost years. Tears of joy and relief ran freely down both of their faces. When they finally parted, Kathy explained, her voice choked with emotion. "Your husband has been planning our meeting for some time. He wanted to surprise you." It was then that Days noticed the decorations around the room, colourful balloons and a banner with the sisters' names hanging on the wall. Samuel appeared from the kitchen, carrying more half-filled balloons. "Days, you ended up arriving earlier," he said with an awkward smile. "I couldn't even finish inflating the balloons." The realization of what was truly happening hit Days like a wave. All her suspicions, all her fears, dissolved instantly. In their place, an overwhelming wave of love and gratitude for her husband emerged. Days ran to Samuel, wrapping him in a tight embrace. "Oh, Samuel," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I can't believe you did this for me." The rest of the afternoon passed in a whirlwind of emotions. Days and Kathy talked incessantly, sharing stories of their lives, filling the gaps of so many years apart. Samuel watched with a satisfied smile, happy to see the joy on his wife's face. When Logan came home from school, he was ecstatic to meet his aunt. The house was filled with laughter and the warm feeling of a reunited family. At night, after Kathy left with the promise of many future meetings and Logan was put to bed, Days and Samuel finally had a moment alone. Lying next to her husband, Days turned to him, her eyes shining with renewed love. "Samuel, I didn't expect this wonderful surprise you prepared," she said softly. Samuel pulled her closer, his serious eyes meeting hers. "Days, I know I'm not the most affectionate and sensitive husband in the world, but I want you to know that my thoughts are always on you and how I can make you the happiest woman in the world," he said sincerely. "I love you, and I will strive to be a better husband. I will always be with you." In that moment, all of Daisy's insecurities dissolved in her husband's arms. She understood that true love was not just about grand gestures or eloquent words, but about understanding, patience, and the constant desire to make each other happy. As she fell asleep in Samuel's arms, Days felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. The fear of abandonment that had plagued her for so long was beginning to dissipate, replaced by the certainty of her family's love, her husband, her son, and now her sister. Days knew the healing journey would be long, but for the first time in a long while, she truly felt hopeful about the future. With Samuel by her side, she was ready to face any challenge life might bring, knowing she was not alone and did not need to fear abandonment. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.